Welcome to another special edition from Stamps Old World UK, the ultimate destination for stamp collectors, historians, and curious minds exploring the vast, fascinating world of philately. In today's long and comprehensive video, we are going to explore the real market value of stamps in 2025, with a strong focus on one of the most iconic and widely recognized stamps in modern postal history, the Queen Elizabeth II first-class definitive stamp. At first glance, many people dismiss this stamp as common, ordinary, and far too recent to hold any real monetary value. But today, we'll peel back the layers of history, rarity, condition, and collector demand to show you how even a modern-looking stamp like this can hide hidden value. We'll also touch on how the entire stamp market is shifting globally in dollar terms, and what that means for collectors, sellers, and everyday people who might have treasure hidden in a drawer, a shoebox, or an inherited album from a relative. Let's begin with context. The stamp you see here is part of the Machin series, named after the artist Arnold Machin, who designed the simple yet timeless profile of Queen Elizabeth II in the 1960s. This series has remained in continuous use for decades, becoming one of the most reproduced images in human history, with billions printed across different colors, denominations, paper types, and formats. The specific purple first-class stamp shown here represents the more modern non-denominated class of stamps, meaning it is valued by its service level rather than a fixed price, in this case, first-class domestic postage within the United Kingdom. Now, millions of these stamps have been printed and used since their introduction, so it's true that a standard used copy may not be worth much. However, not all stamps are created equal. Variants, errors, and limited printings exist. And these exceptions are exactly what experienced collectors seek. In the current stamp market of 2025, the demand for Queen Elizabeth II stamps has increased, especially since her passing in 2022 and the subsequent royal transition to King Charles III. This historical change has placed a nostalgic spotlight on the long reign of Queen Elizabeth II, and collectors around the world, especially in the United States, Canada, India, Australia, and across Europe, have begun actively searching for definitive and commemorative stamps from her era. While the standard purple first-class Machin stamp in used condition might only fetch a few cents or up to $1 when sold in bulk, the real value lies in identifying the unique characteristics that turn a common stamp into a collectible one. For example, stamps printed during transitional periods between printers like De La Rue, Walsall, Carter, and others can vary subtly in ink density, paper texture, and phosphor band application. Variants with missing phosphor bands, misplaced perforations, color shifts, or printing errors can sell for anywhere from $10 to over $150, depending on how rare the error is and whether it has been catalogued or verified by a philatelic authority. Moreover, stamps sold in presentation packs, miniature sheets, and booklet formats often contain rare printings or coil versions that are missed by casual collectors. A single first-class Machin stamp from a booklet printed on SBP 2U paper, with an elliptical perforation error, recently sold for over $100 due to its scarcity. There is also strong demand for corner blocks, marginal markings, traffic lights, cylinder numbers, and gutter pairs, all of which can enhance the value of otherwise ordinary stamps. Philatelic items with such technical collecting features are often listed in the Stanley Gibbons catalog, Michel, or Scott, and are favored by serious buyers looking for investment-grade material. The collector psychology behind this demand is based on more than just rarity. It's driven by the thrill of discovery, the historical attachment to the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, and the desire to own a piece of time captured in miniature form. Now, let's explore the dollar value aspect of today's stamp market. The exchange rate between the British pound and the US dollar has made UK stamps increasingly attractive to overseas buyers, especially when bulk lots or rare items are sold through platforms like eBay, Delcamp, and Hipstamp. Many UK-based sellers have found that selling Machin stamps, particularly early decimal versions, rare booklets, or misprinted first-class issues, in online auctions can fetch 2 to 5 times more from US buyers than within the UK itself. This is especially true when the listings include clear, high-resolution images and keyword-rich descriptions that mention verified error types or rare issue dates. For example, a collector in Canada recently paid $85 for a block of 4 first-class purple Machin stamps with a major ink shift and cylinder number, a block that might have sold for only £20 in the UK if the seller wasn't aware of its full potential. This demonstrates that knowing the market, identifying your stamp precisely, and listing it with the right information can dramatically increase its value. It's also important to understand how condition affects pricing. A stamp that is mint never hinged, perfectly centered, and free from fingerprints, bends, or gum disturbance can easily be valued 10 times higher than the same stamp in used or damaged condition. Postmarks also matter. A clear, dated postmark from a significant event or location, such as the Queen's Jubilee, a royal wedding, or the last day of a local post office, can turn a used stamp into a collectible gem. Many collectors focus specifically on postally used stamps with historical relevance and well-placed cancellations, which means even used first-class Machins can sell for more than expected if they tick those boxes. And as younger generations begin to enter the hobby, digital verification through online marketplaces and grading services is becoming more popular, allowing buyers to invest with confidence and pushing prices even higher for authenticated material. From an investment standpoint, now is an ideal time to pay close attention to your stamp collection. With inflation pushing up the cost of postal services, and the ongoing transition from Queen to King on all official UK postage, collectors are rushing to complete their Elizabeth II sets before prices rise further. In some cases, dealers have noted a 20 to 30% increase in catalogue prices for rare Machin issues over the past 18 months, and auction houses are reporting strong sales for unique British material across Europe, North America, and Asia. Whether you're buying, selling, or just re-evaluating your collection, the message is clear: don't underestimate the modern first-class stamp. Hidden value exists, especially when you look for rare variants, errors, positional blocks, and uncirculated formats. So what can you do next? First, carefully check your collection. Look for unusual features like missing phosphor bands, off-center prints, incorrect colors, or unusual perforations. Second, consult updated stamp catalogs like Stanley Gibbons or digital resources that provide side-by-side images and values. Third, consider getting your stamps appraised or joining an online stamp forum or Facebook group where experts can help you identify rare versions. And finally, if you're planning to sell, consider listing your stamps with detailed descriptions and clear images to attract global buyers. With the right information, even a humble first-class stamp can become a small fortune waiting to be discovered. Next up, the Queen Elizabeth II first-class and second-class Machin definitives. These stamps are part of everyday life in the UK, easily recognized by their clean profile of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, yet they hold a fascinating and often overlooked place in the collector's market. The purple first-class stamp and the blue second-class stamp may seem ordinary to most, but today we're going to explore how they've become increasingly collectible in 2025, and how even minor details on these stamps can make a major difference in their market value, especially when priced in dollars and sold internationally. Let's begin with a brief history. These stamps belong to the Machin series, named after sculptor Arnold Machin, whose iconic plaster bust of Queen Elizabeth II was adopted for British definitive stamps in 1967. Over the next 5 decades, the Machin head design became one of the most reproduced works of art in history, appearing on more than 200 billion stamps. The first-class stamp, often in rich purple or plum, covers standard domestic postage, while the second-class stamp, in its signature blue, is for non-urgent delivery. Millions of these stamps have been produced annually, but not all are created equal. Variations in printer, paper, gum, phosphor bands, and perforations mean that many subtle variants exist, and some of them are quite valuable. In today's stamp market, where even modern material is rising in demand due to royal transitions, inflation, and international interest, collectors are paying far more attention to the fine print. In 2025, the Queen Elizabeth second-class Machin stamp, in particular, has become an unexpected star among budget-conscious collectors. While the first-class version gets most of the attention, the second-class blue stamp has its own subtypes and varieties that can sell for significant amounts. Basic used versions of the blue second-class stamp in good condition are usually sold in bulk lots for around $5 to $15 per 100 stamps. However, stamps with errors, such as missing or doubled phosphor bands, rare booklet issues, uncut pairs, or printing anomalies, can sell for $20 to $100 each depending on the visibility and rarity of the mistake. One collector recently sold a pane of second-class stamps with a shifted perforation and unprinted Queen's head for $140, despite the stamp being modern and originally low in face value. As with most collectibles, the devil is in the details. The presence of a specific printer's mark, cylinder number, or booklet code can dramatically shift the value of a stamp that might otherwise seem worth only pennies. The global collector's market continues to evolve. Now more than ever, buyers from the United States, Germany, Australia, and even Southeast Asia are showing interest in British Machin stamps. Since the royal transition from Queen Elizabeth II to King Charles III, there has been a noticeable uptick in demand for last-generation Machins, the final versions bearing Queen Elizabeth's image. In particular, collectors are seeking pristine, mint, never-hinged examples of both the first and second-class versions. Sealed booklets and presentation packs from the early 2000s to 2020 are especially popular on platforms like Delcamp and eBay, often selling for $30 to $50 when they include unusual or limited edition print runs. What's more, prices for definitive stamps with commemorative cancellations, such as those dated on the day of the Queen's passing or the coronation of King Charles, are steadily rising in both domestic and international auctions. Condition plays a vital role in determining the value of both first and second-class stamps. Mint condition stamps, especially those in corner blocks with marginal markings, always command higher prices. Meanwhile, stamps with well-placed postmarks, especially those that are clear and date-specific, can also attract premium bids. For example, a second-class Machin stamp used and cancelled on the exact date of the Queen's funeral with a London postmark sold for over $60 simply because of its timing and historical context. Such sales show that these stamps are not just postage, they are micro-time capsules. Even the smallest detail can make them valuable. Some collectors focus exclusively on finding stamps used on cover, meaning still attached to the envelope, especially when the cover includes a full address and readable date. These are preferred for postal history collections, and examples featuring business correspondence from royal institutions or government agencies are especially in demand. So how can you determine if your stamp is worth anything? First, check for the stamp's printing source. There are known versions of both first and second-class Machins printed by De La Rue, Walsall Security Printers, Carter, and other security firms. Each use different inks, paper types, and methods, all of which influence collector interest. Second, inspect the stamp's edges for perforation irregularities. Misaligned perforations or coils can signal rare booklet versions. Third, shine UV light on the stamp if possible to check for the presence and placement of phosphor bands. A missing or misplaced band is a key error that can skyrocket the stamp's value. Fourth, if the stamp is used, look at the cancellation mark. Clean, readable, date-stamped cancels are preferred. Fifth, if you own complete booklets or sheets, keep them intact. Single stamps removed from valuable booklets lose a portion of their collectible value. Let's now zoom out and consider the broader stamp market. In 2025, stamp collecting is experiencing a resurgence not only as a nostalgic hobby but also as a form of tangible asset investment. Like rare coins, comic books, and sports cards, stamps are being reconsidered as alternative investment items. And Queen Elizabeth II's long series of Machin definitives is uniquely positioned to benefit from that shift. Some stamp dealers now offer investment packs that include top-condition first and second-class stamps, bundled with commemoratives and regionals, all authenticated and packaged for resale or future value increase. While it is unlikely that a single modern stamp will turn you into a millionaire, the consistent increase in value of rare variants, often appreciated 15 to 40% over the past few years, suggests that now is a smart time to go through your collection and identify hidden gems. In conclusion, whether you have a stack of letters saved in a drawer, a shoebox of old envelopes, or a full album of UK definitives, it's time to take a closer look at your Queen Elizabeth II first and second-class Machin stamps. Both can be worth far more than their face value, especially when collectors and sellers take the time to identify rare variants, flawless condition, printing errors, and postal history. The blue second-class stamp may seem humble, but it has risen to new popularity among collectors looking for overlooked modern treasures. Combine that with the already respected value of the purple first-class version, and you've got a pair of stamps that are both affordable for beginners and rewarding for experts. This is why collecting UK stamps never goes out of style. They are pieces of history, miniature portraits of a changing monarchy, and in many cases, unexpectedly valuable items worth hundreds of dollars when sold to the right buyer. Next up, the regal purple first-class stamp, the iconic blue second-class stamp, and the vintage deep blue 3-pence stamp that takes us back to an era when letter writing was still a national tradition and postage was measured in pennies rather than classes. These stamps, while incredibly common in their day, are now commanding renewed attention in 2025 thanks to a global wave of nostalgia, the historic transition from Queen Elizabeth to King Charles, and the increased visibility of rare variants, unusual printings, and condition-sensitive collectors who are treating these issues as both cultural keepsakes and financial assets. Starting with the modern first and second-class Machin stamps, we've already seen how value is affected by printers, phosphor bands, booklet issues, and printing errors, but with the introduction of the classic 3P Machin into our spotlight, we expand the discussion into a much richer field of historical collecting, involving pre-decimal and early decimalization issues that emerged in the early 1970s, a critical turning point in British philately and currency history. The 3p Blue Queen stamp was part of the earliest decimal-era issues released after the UK converted from the traditional pound-shillings-pence system to a base 10 currency model, making this stamp not just a postal tool but a marker of economic transformation and royal continuity, as Queen Elizabeth II continued her reign through national change, commemorated in every detail of the Machin profile used on these stamps. Now let's talk about the real-world value of these stamps in today's collector marketplace, priced not just in pounds but increasingly in US dollars and global equivalents due to the surge in online selling and the internationalization of stamp trading. The 3p Machin stamp, while considered common in general usage, can command strong prices when it appears in mint condition, unmounted, or as part of a complete sheet, corner block, or with visible cylinder numbers. While a single-use 3p stamp might fetch between 10 and 30 cents USD, a mint never-hinged version in perfect condition can sell for up to $2 to $5 depending on the color shade, paper type, and whether it features gum differences or trial print characteristics. The real value kicks in when rare errors are found, such as missing phosphor bands, off-center perforations, or even paper fluorescence anomalies, where examples have sold for $50 to $100 or more to specialist collectors. In the case of certain 3p blue stamps printed on experimental paper types or from transitional press runs between different printing firms like Harrison and De La Rue, the variation can be substantial, especially when the stamp is listed in the Stanley Gibbons Specialized Catalog, referenced by number and supported with expert certificates or provenance. Add to that any commemorative postmarks, especially those from the early 1970s or tied to royal events such as jubilees or anniversaries, and you have a stamp whose historical and emotional appeal extends far beyond its original postal value. In recent months, we've seen auction results for verified error versions of the 3p Blue Machin crossing the $150 mark, particularly in the United States and Australia, where British Commonwealth collectors are looking to complete their early decimal series with rarities that are getting harder and harder to find in top condition. Now let's zoom out and look at how all three of these stamps, the first class, second class, and 3p Machins, contribute to the greater narrative of stamp collecting in the 21st century, particularly in the post-Elizabethan era. Since the Queen's passing in 2022 and the release of the first King Charles III stamps, collectors around the world have been racing to preserve pieces of Her Majesty's postal legacy. Whether it's the modern non-denominated Machins used in everyday UK mail or the older decimal values like the 3p. Each stamp now acts as a tribute to one of the longest reigning monarchs in world history. As a result, stamp dealers, online sellers, and even general investors are seeing a consistent increase in value for well-preserved Machins, not just in terms of catalog price, but actual sale prices in live auctions and online marketplaces. One trend that has become especially clear in 2025 is the growing demand for full definitive sets, meaning collectors are not just looking for individual stamps, but complete sequences that include every denomination, shade, and printing variety, which turns even lower-value stamps into vital pieces of a larger puzzle. Collectors are now paying upwards of $500 to $1,000 for verified complete mint sets of early decimal Machins including the 3p, 2.5p, 10p, and all others in between, especially when assembled in original condition and supported with official documentation. This makes it more important than ever for new collectors to examine their albums carefully, and for casual hobbyists or family members who inherit a stamp collection to resist the urge to sell quickly without checking for high-value varieties hiding in plain sight. So what should you look for in your 3p Blue Queen Elizabeth II stamp? First, check the paper type under UV light. If it glows brightly or shows differences in fiber density, you may have an early fluorescence test issue. Second, inspect the phosphor bands. There should be one or two, depending on the issue, and their placement or absence is critical to value. Third, look for perforation consistency. Clean-cut edges versus rough-cut or shifted teeth may suggest booklet versions or coil issues. Fourth, verify the gum. Mint stamps should have full, even gum with no disturbance. Finally, if you own multiple 3p stamps, compare their shade under natural light. Some versions are printed in ultramarine, some in deep blue, and a few rare trial issues in lighter or darker experimental inks. These shade differences are often only visible side by side and can dramatically change the value, with ultramarine versions being particularly sought after. And if you find a vertical pair or a corner margin block with a visible plate number or guide mark, don't break it up, that positional information adds significant collector value and rarity that may push the piece into the higher price range when sold internationally. In conclusion, the Queen Elizabeth II Machin series, across all denominations, from the Royal Purple First Class and Bold Blue Second Class to the classic 3P Blue, represents one of the richest, most diverse, and still underestimated fields in all of philately. These stamps are not just relics of a postal system, they are artifacts of a monarchy, a memory of national identity, and, for the attentive collector, a real opportunity for both historical preservation and financial reward. As the world shifts into a new chapter under King Charles III, and Machin definitives become legacy items, the demand for rare, flawless, and unusual Elizabeth II Machins will only continue to rise. Whether you are a beginner with a few envelopes or a seasoned collector with a full album, now is the perfect time to take another look at your stamps, compare them with online catalogs, consult experts, and potentially uncover value hiding in plain sight. Thank you for joining us for this extra-long and deeply researched episode from Stamps Old World UK. Be sure to subscribe for more rare finds, price updates, collecting advice, and expert insights into one of the most rewarding hobbies in the world. Until next time, keep collecting, stay curious, and remember, behind every ordinary stamp, there could be an extraordinary story and a hidden treasure.